In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be spending this time here with you today. Our first guest is just an amazing person. Her name is Judy Goodman, and she's here today to talk to us about learned behavior and triggers. So welcome to the show, Judy.
Thank you, Marianne. You know, when I heard you say and triggers, I thought, I hope they don't think this is about the horse. Boy Warrior's horse. But anyway, we'll clarify that as we move along. But yes, good to be with you again. How have you been, my friend?
Oh, I have been fabulous. How about you?
I'm doing excellent. And, you know, I've been watching some of the shows that you've been having, and you are just knocking it out the ballpark. You are getting some of the most amazing speakers. I'm just really delighted to be a small part of that.
Oh, my goodness. I couldn't think of having this show without you being a part of it. So, you know, thank you so much. And it's so great to have you here. I've always enjoyed your wisdom and insights that you've shared. It really has had me come to my own aha moments over the years. And I'm just delighted that you can spend this time with us today to talk about this because, I mean, there's so much going on. So much happening.
Well, that's almost an understatement today, isn't it? That there's so much
it is,
going on.
without a doubt. Yeah.
And each of us in our own way are seeing how this is actually affecting us. The same things keep happening over and over, not always good things, and that's what I'm calling learned behavior. And Marianne, you know, if we think about it, if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
So doing the same thing, expecting a different result is absolutely not going to get the results that we need. Now, let me clarify, if I may, the word trigger as we're talking about learned behavior. There are many things in our life that we do with a repetitive pattern over and over and over. Some of it's not good. Some of it would go along with addictive personalities. It would go along with bad relationships. Lots of different things, and unfortunately for each of these things, there are always triggers. Let's say that we have a bad relationship. Some of the triggers might be an anniversary date of when we broke up, a smell of a perfume or a cologne, or taste, as in maybe a meal that you shared, memories, locations, riding by where you used to live with that person, if it's a failed marriage, one thing or another. So triggers is going to be something we identify as reopening, reactivating, getting it started all over again. So learned behavior, that thing that we do over and over without even thinking about it, And I'll give you a couple of examples, if I may.
Please do.
Imagine going into your home, a place that has not been refreshed in the entire time that you've lived there. Bedroom's the same comforter, still cluttered. It's the same way that it's always been. And in your mind, you want something different, you want something new, you want something better, but your learned behavior, you've been acting out and reacting to that room, that home the same way all these years, and you want something better. Well, what's happening? You're doing the same pattern over and over again. And you know, this really brings to mind a friend of ours, and I think you've had this gentleman on your show before, Ken Elliott.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He has an outstanding book on manifesting 1, 2, 3. Well, let's kind of bring him in the loop with this just a little bit. Let's say that the scenario that we're talking about, wanting a better home, and yet we have not changed or anything, and we have bought Ken's book, Manifesting 1, 2, 3. We read the book, we sit down, we begin because we think that we understand, but here's something that may be standing in your way. You're doing all the work as you believe you understand it, but nothing's happening. And you're a prisoner of learned behavior. Maybe you thought that meditating or manifesting or seeing the movie or whatever, you understood it, and yet when you sit down and you're ready to manifest, nothing's happening, or at least you don't think it is. Now, in truth, because thought is creation, that thought may already be at work. But because you don't see it manifesting, you might be that prisoner of learned behavior. And here's where I find our real drawback is. If you do nothing and yet ask for everything, you wake up in the next day in the very same bedroom, same clutter, everything's around you just the same. You're probably thinking, okay, Ken Elliott does not know what he's talking about. That's not true. He does. He does.
Yeah.
The issue is all change begins with thought. But you haven't changed. You haven't changed your thoughts. You're not doing anything different. You have not made one change except to sit there and be dissatisfied and asking for something bigger and better, and there's nothing wrong with that. And nothing is changing because you've done nothing whatsoever to make changes in your own life. Excuse me. One of the things I do want to help people understand is that when we have thoughts, when we are working for creation or change or something better, I've had people ask me many times, when does it work? How many times do I have to say it? What makes the difference? You know, well, when we think about things as we have a thought, that's in our head. And nothing wrong with it being in the head because it's got to start there somewhere. You've got to conceive the idea that you need a new car, you need more money for your household expenses, one thing or another. One of the steps you may be missing is moving the thought from the head, which is only a thought, to the heart, which is where all of the feelings and the emotions and the buds of creation exist. So instead of just thinking about it, pull it down into the heart area and really feel it with every fiber of your being. Now, I'll tell you a story. This is a true story about a young man who lives in a big, huge, enormous city. Very costly, very challenging, and the man is having a hard time making ends meet. He's extremely brilliant, but having trouble getting ahead within his company. And he needs more money. He would like to find a new partner. And it goes on and on and on. And everything just keeps happening the same way over and over and over. Learned behavior. In fact, as he has grown and matured a little bit, he finds out that in some ways he's become his father. He's learned his father's behavior and slightly has become his mother. He's learned some of his mother's behavior. Well, things keep going on and on. He keeps practicing all of the learned behavior until things are really pressing hard. His back is to the wall. He can't really afford to pay the rent anymore. He's going to have to move. He's unclear as to what in the world he's going to do. He starts packing. He eliminates a lot of the clutter, a lot of the debris. Well, he knows he doesn't want to pay to ship it somewhere. He doesn't want to pay to store it. And guess what happens? What? When he started making changes, when he did his part, almost immediately his life changed. He started having job offers. There were new thoughts. New beginnings were possible. He was prepared to move, prepared to do everything that he had to do because he couldn't afford to be there anymore. And so in making all of those changes, he opened the door for the changes to begin. So now here's the profound part of this story. We should ask for bigger and better. We should ask for the money to meet our finances and so forth. But what are we doing as far as doing our part of it? How are we breaking the mold? We get the same bills every month. We sink into our depression. We go into our inner thoughts and we say to ourselves, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. Remember this. This is one of the most profound statements out of this entire class today, this talk here, is what we say becomes our reality. And when you say, I can't make the bills, I can't pay them, I can't make it anymore, or I'm so lonely, I want a partner, I want someone in my life, what you're speaking your despair, your unhappiness, one thing or another. So even when we don't have the money to pay the bills, sometimes we need to say, I'm very grateful that I am meeting my bills. And again, here's another profound statement to remember. Begin your day in gratitude and end your day in gratitude. In other words, when you wake up in the morning, recite 7 things you're grateful for, even if it's just the ability to breathe normally or having a warm bed. Maybe it's an old bed, but if it's a warm bed and probably has good clean sheets on it, then be grateful for that. But say 7 things that you are grateful for. And then at night when you go to bed or whenever, before you fall asleep, say 7 things you're grateful for. And if you'll start living your life in gratitude, even for the things you don't have, maybe you don't have that new car yet, then say, I am so grateful that a new car is coming my way. Now that's manifesting. That goes back to what Ken's teaching us. And it also goes back to learned behavior. Before you keep saying to your friends, I can't afford a new car. I don't know how I'm going to get around. My car's broken down all the time. So you start breaking your learned behavior habit. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So what I'm hearing is having the energy come down to your heart and feeling that gratitude is really the fuel that gets our intentions moving.
You bet. You bet. And change begins in your thought. Cluttered thoughts reaps cluttered results or delayed results. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's another story about learned behavior. True story. You know, all these things are true, and I suspect there are a lot of people listening to your show that can relate to these. But, we've got people that become addicts because they learned from a parent or from their peers or whatever. They saw that it was the cool thing to do. They started doing it, and then they become a full-blown addict and wonder how in the world they got there. Well, here's a little true story. Young woman, young man, they're kids. They're under the teenage years. And their mother suffers from horrific migraine headaches. She actually has to wind up going to the hospital having shots. They're so bad. Mm-hmm. So the mother laments and feels sorry for herself and says to the boy, says to the girl, oh, my goodness, you're going to grow up to be just like me. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. They learned the behavior, and they grew up to be just like Mom. Oh, and wow. They had horrific headaches. Now, the reason I know this story is true is because this is my story. This is why I understand one of the reasons why I understand how these things work. I grew up to be just like my mother. She told me that I would be that. I was still very young and impressionable, and I believed it. I mean, we believe our parents, right? So I started having migraine headaches. They got so bad that I had to go to the hospital, and I had to get shots. Until one day I had my real epiphany. I had my moment, and I had become my mother. I had learned her behavior so much so, because I'm a good student. Mm-hmm. I had learned it so much so that I was now having the migraine headaches, and I had become my mother. And I finally had enough of it one day. And this is, I think, how Father lets me learn some of my lessons, is that I do go through these things, and this is why I can teach the way I do. I had my moment, and I got really angry and really upset, and I finally said, I'm not my mother. And I wasn't really trying to be disrespectful, but I just knew that that was programmed, and it was not mine. And I just sort of, in a kind of a quiet voice, yelled out into the universe, and I said, I'm not my mother. This is not my pain. I will not have migraines. And Marianne, I've never had one since.
Good for you. And that's really taking control of that kind of energy and declaring what you're willing to take on and what you're not.
Yeah. And our learned behavior, we don't know that we are exhibiting that all of the time. We just do things automatically, go around rubbing our forehead, one thing or another. And we just sort of in our own world, in our own reality, until once you really come to what is it that you really want changed. Well, in that moment, the headache was the thing that I needed to be changed most immediately. For someone else, it could be a car. Maybe they need to be responsible. Maybe that car is full of food wrappers from Burger King or McDonald's or whatever, and they just don't take the time to do minor maintenance, and they don't clean it up. So the God of their understanding in the universe sees that and says, well, kind of not sure if you're ready for this because you're not exhibiting that you're ready for the change. You're not doing your part, and you're not creating the space for the new things that we want to bring you. Okay, so I've got a hand in this. I've got a part in this. Well, that helps me to know that, so I can change my behavior, even when I'm exhibiting behavior that I have forgotten. Well, let me give you another little quick story. Do we have time? I mean, once I start talking, you know how. Here's another story. Let's say that there was some profound speaker performing somewhere, and I wanted to go to this lecture, and I'm going to the lecture, and I sort of stand outside and then just kind of walk in and listen, and I come back out, and there's this nice lady over here, and she says, hi, I'm so glad you're here. And then this lady says to me, I don't think he's very good, frankly. And, the person has not even been talking for 10 minutes yet. So what do I know about that lady that's judging someone in the first 10 minutes of this profound lecture they're about to perform? I see that her learned behavior is one of judgment. She's judging without knowing the whole story. So sometimes our learned behavior can really get in our way and preclude us from hearing profound truths or small, extraordinary bits of wisdom that can turn our life around. Now, see, someone might have been hearing this radio show in the beginning and they thought, she talks funny. I don't know anything she says, whatever, without giving it a fair chance. And remember, it's not about me, because we pick up these bits and pieces of wisdom every day in the most extraordinary ways. You may be driving down the highway and you may see a sign, and in that sign, the God of your understanding and the universe has put a message trying to get your attention again.
Yeah.
So, the old saying goes, stop and smell the roses. Take your time. Whatever it is that you want, do your part. Do your part. So, you have any questions for me? You want to throw something?
Oh, yeah. I always have questions for you.
Yes, I love it.
So let's say someone has learned behavior going on and it's subconscious, and they're not even aware that they're doing it, and they're just kind of bumping up against all these problems in life. What would you suggest to them to make some changes? They know they're having problems, and that's as far as, like, every time they try to get a new job or try to make changes in their life, they feel like they're hitting a wall. What would you suggest?
Well, it's not working, and they don't know why. And I think you've made an extremely profound point. So thank you for that. And here's the deal: is that we are in our own way most of the time. But I would suggest that whatever it is that you need, spend a little time, write a few notes, and let's get back to what I call the point of beginning, or either to the core issue. So list out all of the things that maybe aren't working out the way you want them to. Okay, what is the most profound? What is the thing that you really need to correct or change? What's the most important thing that is there? And then let's sort of get out of the box with that information and let's think, did my mom act like that, or did my dad act that way, or was that their story? Have I learned to live in poverty because my mother always lived in poverty? And maybe she really did, and maybe she had a good reason to be there. But you're not your mother unless you continue a pattern that you learned from her style, her life, her experiences. If you've learned her experiences, that learned behavior will hold you there until you say, wait a minute, that's exactly what my mother used to say. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm not my mother, or I'm not that person, I'm not that experience. This is not going to be my truth. I am opening myself up to the abundances of the heavens, of the God of my understanding. So write it down. If you're having challenges, like if you're in school and you keep not failing, but almost failing, then sit with that for a little bit and think back. Who in my life told me that I could not succeed? Try to find the point of beginning or the core of when you were not able to be successful. Go back, and once you identify it, it will eliminate it, and then you can say, I am not that situation. And you can also say, I am worthy. What if someone kept telling you, you'll never amount to anything, you're just not worth much? Then you have to disavow, you have to disown that. You've got to go back to the core. Now, manifesting is a wonderfully easy, ancient bit of wisdom that can be utilized by everyone. But you want to see it happen quicker, you want to see it happen to a greater degree, get out of the way and allow that you are going to do your own part. You want to it's just like this person living in a big city and wanted to change, nothing would change. Was not until he finally gave up and see everything, all of this learned behavior, every little thing, all the clutter, everything remained that way for years and years and years. Not until he packed, started eliminating all of the clutter, not until he was so scared he didn't even know where he would live a month from today, until he made all of those arrangements. In other words, he was doing his part, and I don't think he really understood it, but perhaps he will now. And then all of a sudden, everything started changing now. Does he still have a bump or two in the road? It's very likely, but now that he has seen that making preparation to move ahead is really what allowed him to begin to move ahead. He had been the product of some learned behavior from his parents, but he also was the product of reinstating some of that behavior, and he had accumulated his own behavior that was not serving him well. So he kind of had a big ball to hit out of the park, and that's exactly what's happening.
Well, and sometimes when we get to that point where it's like, gosh, okay, I need to make changes, maybe it can be like how you talked about, as simple as shifting the energy in our home by going through and getting rid of the clutter. And I'm sure everyone's running out to wash their car right now.
That's cute. I like that.
But just really making those adjustments,
Yeah, if that's part of what was holding me back, I'd be out there doing the same thing. But the bottom line of that is get out of your own way. And if things keep repeating over and over and over, look at it. And, if you can tack that onto a person, place, or thing, let's put it there. Let's don't carry that little monkey on our back any longer, and let's say, okay, not mine. And if you don't know who it belongs to, it doesn't really matter. If you can identify it, just say, it's not mine. I am worthy. I am successful. You can go through that. And, go to my website. There's a lot of other kind of things that will mention this. I use permission statements in a lot of ways. And, it doesn't cost you a thing to look at it. And if you want to download it, print it, share it with everybody. I don't care. That's what it's there for. So just don't keep sitting wishing. Don't do that. Be willing to do your part.
Well, and make those changes and be willing to look at what what do we have a pattern going on here?
Mm-hmm. The repetition. You're exactly right. Whatever the great fear, the great concern, the great need, be willing to sit down and just look at it. And I absolutely endorse Ken's teachings and everything. You know, I've been right there with him in a lot of this for a long time. So what he's saying is right. But in your own way. In other words, if you're manifesting something, then assume that is going to go into a state of perfection because thought starts to form, becomes reality. Do your part. Get busy. Make room for the things that you're wanting. And listen, if it's a partner that you're looking for, when you want to attract that perfect partner, remember that you must also be in your state of perfection, because here's another profound statement.
Ooh.
We attract that which we need and require in order to learn and to grow. Now, if I'm not in my best place, likely, if I'm looking for a partner, the partner I attract will be in a similar place. We attract that which we need and require in order to learn and to grow. So if you want to attract that perfect partner, do your part. Clean up your own loose ends. If you want to attract that perfect job, do your part. Study, take courses, do anything that you can that will elevate you to a little bit better place or a little bit better possibility. So just do your part.
So we have a few more minutes here, Judy. What final tips do you want to leave for our listeners that we can start making some really impactful changes? You've given us a lot of great stuff. And, of course, I want to just mention that, we want people to go and pick up your audiobook, Journey, the Quest of the Soul. It's an award-winning audiobook, and it's, I found it to be life-changing personally. But what other little tips can they use to kind of move themselves forward?
Well, this might be taken the wrong way. I hope not. Don't be selfish, although, it's okay to reach for anything and everything, but don't be selfish in this by, I just want everything. Just narrow it down, if you will. Show to yourself, show to the God of your understanding, to the universe, that you understand now what your part in this is. Narrow it down. So, if there's 5 things you want, write them out, and then let's work on one to start with. And what will happen is you're going to begin to understand the art of manifesting, or the art of replacing learned behavior with your own behavior. And once you start making those subtle changes, and once you get a more clear picture on all of this, that's when the floodgates open. And then those other 4 things you thought you weren't working on, you're already working on them anyway. So identify what your true needs are. The needs that you want, these things, and we don't want to really say it in needs, but the things that belong in your life, that will better your life and whatever, just identify it. And if you have learned behavior that is tied to that, be willing to be that honest. And it's okay to say, oh, I didn't know that I was doing that. I hadn't even thought about it that way. But be willing to do your part in opening up all of the space that the universe needs in order to bring these things to you. The God of your understanding, the universe, does not want you to be in a lack situation or less than. And just get it into your heart. Move it from your head into your heart and start working on it. But by all means, don't sit in your chair and do the manifesting. Do this stuff without reflecting back on your learned behavior and what may or may not be in the way of you getting everything more than what you really deserve. Remember, what you think becomes your reality. If you think you're successful, you will open the gates to that. If you think you're beautiful, you will open the gates to that. If you believe that you are intelligent enough to have the highest degree that your heart is calling for, then you are opening the gates for those things to happen. Believe in yourself, and remember, change your thoughts if your thoughts are not serving you well.
That is some really good advice. And as always, whenever we spend this kind of time together in interviews, and when you've had workshops and different newsletters that go out, I get a lot of emails, and there's a lot of feedback that sometimes I hear, and I'm sure you get this as well, where people think that you're speaking directly to them. So this discussion really needed to be had, and I appreciate hearing it because, no matter, where we are on our path, we can all use these, if we're just starting out or if we've been on a journey for a while and we're, paying attention to our spirituality, we still need these markers in the road that help us because we all get thrown in the bushes,
This is true. And, another funny thing that happens is that when we do our shows and I'm telling stories, and if it's my story, I'm going to own it and I'm going to tell you. And then I'll get calls or emails and somebody says, were you talking about me? so many people think I'm telling their stories, but that's kind of, it just goes to show that we all are having similar experiences in one way or another.
And I found that to be very common. When we sit in workshops, we'll get quite a few people that are having a similar issue or a similar challenge that they're dealing with. And so when you speak to it, which I think that's why this topic is so needed at this moment. So I appreciate you taking the time and being here with us today, Judy, to talk about learned behavior and triggers. We, of course, are going to have you back. We'll book that out when you have time because I know you have a very busy schedule. And to mention that, too, I know people who are looking to connect with you can go to judygoodman.com. Are you still accepting private clients? Because I know your schedule's been extremely busy.
I am, but I'm also reevaluating. There are some things that are coming up that I'm having to make real strong decisions as to whether or not I can take this on at the time. But yes, I am. I'm still lecturing. I'm doing private appointments, and probably the next lecture we're going to book is going to be on this exact topic of learned behavior and what triggers our behavior and what makes those triggers either powerful or something that's just completely debilitating. So, and may well be in Denver will be where we'll begin this, but I'm sure that that's going to be announced real soon on the website.
Oh, that's good because I'll sign up for that workshop regardless where it's at.
Okay. I'd be glad to see you.
Well, Judy,
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. You always make it easy, and love chatting with you, and so appreciate the listeners staying tuned and learning more things. And if there's a topic they want us to talk about, remember, I'm one of those that I'll talk about almost anything, and I have that beautiful ability to go to almost any place to talk. So if it's something you'd like to hear, let Marianne know. She can have me back, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind.
Oh, I would love that. I love having you here and spending this time with you, Judy. And again, thank you. I mean, I so appreciate your insight and your wisdom on all these different topics that we hit. So thank you for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure indeed. Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you. And we're going to pause here for a quick break, and we will be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a...
I know we are unlimited, not only because I healed myself of chronic disease in only 3 weeks, but because I know what has helped thousands of my clients.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be introducing our next guest, Sharon Lipinski, and she's here today to talk to us about 365 ways to live life generously. So welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. So, gosh, this book is all about habits, and a lot of times when people hear that, they think, ooh, that could be a bad thing.
Well, It's a thing. They exist. I mean, your life is already full of habits. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are neutral. And so these are habits ranging from behavioral habits like brushing your teeth in the morning to kind of bigger habits like, what do you eat on a daily basis? But we also have habits of thoughts and emotions, so thinking positively, feeling grateful, feeling confident. Those are also habits. And then we have habits of relationships. So our life is already full of habits.
So how, I know sometimes it's like really easy because we've got habits and then we've got willpower. It's easy to call on it, and then sometimes it's not even around. Like my willpower is gone. Why is that?
Well, to understand why willpower isn't there for you needed, because we all know, like sometimes we can walk past that break room and we walk past the box of donuts and it doesn't even faze us. But sometimes it's not there. So willpower is a form of mental energy, and we use it to control thoughts, feelings, emotion, performance. And you get one tank of willpower, and you use it for every decision that you're making all day long. So sometimes your willpower isn't there for you because you've used it up, right? Every time you make a decision, every time you say the nice thing when you kind of wanted to be snarky, every time you force yourself to answer that email that you just didn't want to deal with, all of those decisions all day long are draining that tank of willpower. And your tank of willpower could already be low because you're under physical stress. You're tired or you're hungry. Because willpower is a form of mental energy, but it's fueled by your body, right? So if you're hangry, anger brought on by hunger, it's much harder to control that impulse because our willpower tank is drained because of physical stress. Or if you're tired, same thing. And then emotional stress as well. So if if there's any chance that you're making a lot of decisions, if you're tired or you're hungry or stressed out, there's a good chance your willpower isn't going to be there for you when you need it.
Okay, so when with willpower and with habits, we have to really carefully choose which ones, like when we use our willpower and which habits we're going to really focus on to create a healthier life.
Yes, right. So, there are some things that you have to think about and then some things that you don't. We don't need to be thinking about exercise. We don't need to be thinking about eating right. We don't need to think about spending quality time with our family, not texting while we're in the car. These are things that we can allow to happen on autopilot. We don't have to use our valuable willpower to make sure that they get done. And so in the book, 365 Ways to Live Generously, I focus on 7 fundamental habits. And I call it the generosity habits because to me, it really is all about generosity. And when we think about that, we usually think it means giving to other people. And yes, it is about being generous with other people, but you are the foundation. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to give to yourself as well. So many of these habits are about you taking care of you, and then many of these habits are about you taking care of other people, because we also have a very deep human need to make a difference, to contribute to other people's lives. And so the 7 habits are physical health. That's the first one. And by physical health, I mean exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. I do not mean how much you weigh. And I'm on a mission to especially help women stop focusing on how much we weigh, because our weight is not just impacted by diet and exercise, but there are biological, digestive, genetic factors that we don't have control over. So focus on what you can control. Exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. So that's habit number 1. And then habit 2 is mindfulness, right? Because
love that.
That's a habit you care a lot about?
I do. I work on that every day, being present and mindfulness. And that was one of the things I really appreciated about your book, because it really kind of touched on that, and it just really spoke to me deeply.
Yeah, so what I like to tell people is that with our physical health, our body's natural state is to be still, so we have to move it to exercise it. But our mind's natural state is to move, and so to exercise our brain, we have to still it. And sometimes people think that means meditation, and it could be, but there's many different mindfulness practices. And if you've only tried one type of meditation and you think you don't like it, well, there are so many different styles of meditation. So I encourage people to find a mindfulness practice that really works for them because it's fundamental to our well-being.
Yeah, and that's I kind of going back here a little bit. When you're talking about these 7 essential habits, I think it's so important, how you said that, be generous to ourselves. And that's so important. A lot of times people never do that. They think about being, it's okay to be generous to other people, but when it comes to ourselves, it's like, ooh, do I really take the time to do that?
Right. And especially women, we're always taking care of other people and putting our own well-being on the back burner. But if you do that, you're burning the candle at both ends. It is not sustainable. And it's not generous because what I tell people is love yourself like you love the people in your life. You would tell the people that you love to find time to exercise, find time to be mindful because I want you to be happy and healthy. So we have to learn to love ourselves like we want other people to love themselves.
I think those are very wise words to live by. So we went over number 1 and number 2. What are the other habits that you want to share with us today? I know we're not going to get into all of them because, of course, we want people to go out and pick up the book, the 365 Ways to Live Generously. So they got to go get that. But let's touch on a couple more.
Well, relationships, because the quality of our lives is directly related to the quality of our relationships. So that's the third habit. And then the most important relationship you have is the one that you have with you. So the fourth habit is connecting with yourself and taking care of your mental, emotional, spiritual health. And then gratitude. And gratitude is one of my favorite habits because it touches so many parts of our lives, our physical health, our emotional, our spiritual, our work, our personal relationships can all benefit from gratitude. And then there's simplicity and philanthropy. So those round out the 7 habits, and the way the book is designed is that each habit appears once a week with a little action for you to take each day so you can really practice these. Because by and large, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but don't you usually know what you need to do?
Oh, yeah. It weighs over me sometimes. I'm like, ooh, I got this list that I've got to get accomplished,
Yeah. So nobody needs to be told you have to exercise, you have to eat right. We know. We know what we need to do. What we have to do is apply what we know. And so through the structure of this book, doing a little something every day in each of these categories gives us the opportunity to apply that knowledge and, more importantly, to create the habit. Because when we're talking about habit, what we're really talking about is a neurological process. Inside your brain is a neural pathway that connects the beginning of an action to the end of an action. And when you do something new for the first time, we have to work really hard at it. All of those neurons along that path are firing. But when something is a habit, only the neurons at the beginning and the end. And you've experienced this in your own life. Do you remember learning how to drive?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people remember that, too.
I learned how to drive on a stick shift. Did you drive a stick shift?
Yes, that's actually at the Rose Bowl parking lot in California. That was a great place because there was plenty of space, and I kept scooching along just little by little.
Yeah, and it was stressful, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn how to watch the drivers, watch the lights, watch the signs, press in the clutch, put the car in gear, press the gas, and let off, like all at the right pressure. Like driving in the beginning is overwhelming and stressful. But you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. It gets easier and easier and easier. And then have you ever left your driveway and arrived at your destination and thought, how did I get here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't even remember driving.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just kind of on autopilot.
Yep. That's the habit creation and process. Through repetition, when something finally becomes a habit, you don't even have to think about it. You can spend all of that extra mental energy thinking about what you have to get from the grocery store or what you're going to do when you get to the office. So habits are wonderful because it frees us up to do other things. And if you can make the right things habits, we'll stop talking ourselves out of things, right? You don't talk yourself out of brushing your teeth. You don't forget to have your morning cup of coffee. And you can have that same automatic repetition happening with any other desired behavior too.
That is really good to know. So on that topic, then how do we develop the most important habits to improve our love life?
Well, I have 5 favorite love life habits. And we probably might have time to cover 2 of them. And I think of them as like the bookends of your relationship. And there's the goodbye habit, and there's the hello habit. So whenever you and your partner are leaving each other, to treat that moment mindfully, right? To give your partner your full attention, make eye contact, exchange some physical contact, say something nice, and then when you're reunited, do that again. And we're talking 30 seconds or a minute max, but those 2 minutes a day will really give you a buffer space to form a deeper foundation in the relationship.
Well, that's important. I mean, we just never, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, so it's nice to be able to do that so we don't leave the door and then have regrets,
And it really can be tiny things that make the difference in the quality of a relationship. So these are tiny things, but they make a big difference in the quality of a relationship.
Well, that's a real important thing. So, so we've got those, and that's how to develop some, simple everyday habits that really improve our relationships with our, in our love life and just with people around us. How do we break a bad habit?
Well, breaking bad habits are way harder than creating new habits because you've already got all of that neural wiring in place. So an existing habit is the path of least resistance. Your brain wants to take it. So I recommend focusing first on creating new habits for multiple reasons. But when you're ready to break a bad habit, you first have to understand the 3 components of a habit. So a habit is made up of a trigger, an action, and a reward. So in other words, something has caused you to act in a certain way for a particular benefit. Everything we do for a reason. So when you're trying to break a bad habit, you want to hack into this structure of your habit. So it first begins with observing it. When are you doing this? You want to find out what your triggers are. When are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? What's around you? Is it an emotional feeling? Is it a physical sensation that is launching this bad habit? And if you can, the easiest way to break a bad habit is to avoid that trigger entirely. So if it's possible, just eliminate the trigger. But if that's not possible, find out what your reward is. What are you getting out of this? So it could be a physical reward. You might be getting, for example, our morning cup of coffee has a strong burst of caffeine, of energy. That's a physical reward. So is it a physical reward that you're getting from it? Or is it an emotional reward? Do you feel important? Do you feel less stressed? What are you getting out of it emotionally? So try to find out why are you doing this habit, and then find a better action to replace it with. Does that make sense?
That's perfect. Because a lot of times, especially, as we are coming through a beginning of a new year, we've got our, things that we want to change with our lives and do things differently. And a lot of those kind of fizzle out because, it takes a while to break these bad habits.
Yes. So the common sense kind of says, hey, it takes 21 days to make a habit. I think we've all heard that, and there are dozens of books out there written with the title. But that number was actually just made up 60 years ago, and people have been repeating this fact ever since.
Oh, no. Okay, so that's bad.
So do you want to know how long it takes to make a habit?
Yes, I'd love to.
So the University of College London followed people in creating habits, and they found it took anywhere from 18 days to 254 days.
Ooh. Now, did it depend on what it was that you were trying to change, or just on the person if it took longer?
Well, yes and yes. Because here's this, I mean, we've all had this experience. Like, we know this to be true in our bodies, that some habits are easy and some habits are hard. So if you're just doing something simple, like I want to drink more water, that might be easy to do. But if you're tackling something harder, like exercise, meditation, our eating habits, lots of people find these very hard habits to create because we have a lot of emotional baggage that comes with it. Not being able to do it, I really like the way I've always done it, right? We have all of this stuff that comes along with it. So how long it's going to take you to create a particular habit is going to depend on you. It's going to depend on the habit you're starting, the reason, your motivation for starting it, how much support you get while you're doing it, how much pleasure you get from it. So it can really vary widely.
Well, at least we've got some really good numbers to work with and a very good sense. I mean, your book is just really easy to read, and it's easy for people to pick up and get a great sense of what they need to do to move forward and use the habits that work for them and get rid of the ones that don't.
Yeah. Each entry is between 200 and 500 words, so just a short thing every morning, but most importantly, the opportunity to practice it. Because we know we need to do, we just need to do it. So, and that's my hope, is that this book will really help people practice what they know they need to do until it becomes something they don't have to think about in their own lives.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Now, I was shocked to read about the CDC and their estimations of, like, sleep that people are getting in America.
Yes. Do you think you're getting enough sleep?
Probably not. Why don't you go ahead and go over those stats for us, for people who are tuning in, because I was a little floored with that.
Yeah, so they say that 1 in 3 Americans are not getting enough sleep. And they define it by less than 7 hours of sleep a night. What I like to do is I like to ask a few questions. You know you're getting enough sleep if you feel rested when you wake up. Are you feeling irritable during the day? Is your performance being impaired? Do you need an alarm clock to wake you up? If you fall asleep while you're watching TV, or if you're not engaged in some kind of activity, if you start to feel sleepy, if you have difficulty remembering things, if you're catching up on sleep on the weekends, these are some signs that you might not be getting enough sleep.
Well, and I think each of us can honestly answer when we wake up in the morning if we feel rested or we're still exhausted.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what are some of the habits, if we're one of those, if we're the 1 in 3, what are some of the habits that we can develop that will help us get better sleep?
So some of the habits are daytime habits and some of them are nighttime habits. So during the day, one of the most important habits that you can do to sleep better is actually exercise. And it's really the number one thing that you can do. Sleep studies show that regular exercise helps you fall asleep faster and sleep more soundly. And that's probably for a lot of reasons, but that's what the sleep studies show us. So if you don't have an exercise habit, that's something that you definitely want to bring in.
And that would definitely make that whole transition easier. Now, I know in your book you also talk about visualizing success. Can you touch on that a little bit for our listeners?
Well, I think that visualizing success is important. There's a couple pieces to doing it correctly. We want to know what it is that we want. So to create this vision. And when we're creating a vision, I like to go really deep into that and understand what we value as human beings and what our most important roles are. Because I will do things as my role as a spouse that I won't do for myself. So if I can tap into what's really, really most important to me and understand how what I want is going to help me fill my roles better or help me meet my values better, I'm more likely to take that action. And then part 2 to that, because that is not enough. The next step is to understand the steps that are going to help you achieve that. What is the next thing that I need to do in order to reach that goal?
Well, that's good. And it makes it really clear so people can go ahead and say, okay, these are the changes I'm going to make, and this is what I need to do.
Yeah. The question I always like to ask is, what is the next most important thing? Just to really kind of keep that focus, because it can be overwhelming. So if we just say, well, what is the next most important thing? It really can focus our efforts.
So, and I keep referring to your book because it was such a great resource. I mean, I had a hard time putting it down. You talk about defining healthy body rules. What does that mean?
Well, healthy body rules for me is sometimes we have really unhealthy or even contradictory body rules, you know, and when your rules conflict with each other, you can never feel happy. So create very simple rules to override all your other ones that will help guide your actions and your behavior. So my simple healthy body rules are, I am physically active every day. And I intentionally use the word physically active instead of exercise, because exercise is just what we do to force ourselves to be physically active. But if you go for a walk, I do something every day. So that's rule number one. I don't drink soda. I don't have more than one alcoholic drink. And I eat food, mostly plants, not too much. I follow Michael Pollan's rule there. And that's it. I try to keep it super simple and clear so that I know that I'm taking the action that I have control over to take care of my own health.
Well, yeah, and, you know, again, there's simple things that you can do without it being, because I think a lot of times people think, you know, having, making adjustments is going to be this really tough thing. And sometimes it, like how you're talking about with not having soda or limiting yourself to, you know, one alcoholic drink when you go out with friends kind of thing, it really, those are kind of easy things to do.
Yeah. First of all, they have to be something that you have control over, right? I can control my own behavior, so it's something I have control over. And it's a clear line, like I know, am I following my rules or not? It's very clear to me.
Well, and a little birdie told me that you have a special gift for the listeners. We were kind of running a little bit out of time, but I want you to share this real quick with us.
Well, we have some fun ideas. So right now I have a brand new training going on. If you go to my website, bestlifehabits.com, we're going deep into how to create new habits. So that is available to your listeners. We go over the neurology of habits and how to do it in your own life. And by the end of the training, you walk away with your plan to create any new healthy habit that you want. So that could be exercising, eating habits, saving money, any kind of habit, you can create it. And so that's at bestlifehabits.com, and that training is free.
And then where can people connect with you if they want to see what other events you have going on, maybe coaching, anything like that? So
my website is SharonLipinski.com. So you can find out more about my book. I'm also available for speaking and would love to connect with your listeners, see how I could help them.
Oh, perfect. You know, Sharon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today. I mean, you are definitely the go-to person about habits.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. If you'd like to learn more about our upcoming guests, please visit my website at mariannepastana.com. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pastana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepastana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.